Thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. Lovely to be here. And first, we'll start off with a short invocation. And here we go. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. The universe embraces each one of us, yet we can be so blinded by darkness. Because our true teachers guide us with the light of pure knowledge, our eyes can be opened to the power and sweetness of illumination. Therefore, let us bow down before those who guide us on our spiritual path. Om Tat Sat. Okay, so really, I'm up for a very informal interaction. I have a few things I can start off with. I take your cues. Saju, how do you want to do it? Do you want to start off with any questions?
I think to start, we really love having these sessions to be interactive. So I encourage as many of you as possible to turn your cameras on. We'd love to see your faces. And please, if you have any questions, please do ask them. But I've got a question for you, Garuda. Please just, could you share a little bit with us about your spiritual journey and your journey with the Bhagavad-gita?
Yeah. Well, it's been a long journey. I mean, I'm pushing 100. I'm about 98, 97, give or take a few years. And it's the yoga and the tablespoon of formaldehyde that I take every day. And but seriously, I have been reading Bhagavad-gita since I was 14 years old. And it was a part of my journey into yoga that started in my early teens that got so serious that I went to my parents at age 15 and asked them if I could drop out of high school. Now, this is every parent's nightmare. You know, they always want their kids to go into college, at least my parents, who were very educated people. And they said, well, what will you do all day? And I said, I'll practice meditation and read the Bhagavad-gita. Well, they weren't even sure what the Bhagavad-gita was, and I explained to them what it was. I became really, really committed and very serious to the way of life of the Gita. And I read 13 different translations, and I was adding on more to those. And then I came across Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's translation, whose translation really helped resolve some of the conflicts between the other translations. So that really helped me along. Eventually, I was to become an initiated student of his back in the early days. And then I dropped back into college. So I dropped out, but I dropped back in. And I went to Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, in the United States. And then I dropped out again because academics seemed to be so dry. And I liked living the life of the Gita. And then I dropped back into the university, finishing up my bachelor's at American University. And I got into the doctoral program at the University of Chicago, but then that wasn't quite doing it for me. So I went to Harvard. And then the end of the story is that I eventually got my doctorate from Harvard in these classical yoga texts, and particularly delving deeply into the teachings of the Gita, which are so rich. I mean, is it any wonder that the Gita in the West has been translated over and over and over into English since 1785, since the first translation by Charles Wilkins in England, as a matter of fact. And even Mahatma Gandhi first read the Gita not in Gujarati, not in Sanskrit, but in English while he was studying at Oxford. So that's your Harvard over there. I guess I don't need to tell you that. In fact, that's probably insulting, since Oxford is twice as old as Harvard is. In any case, but the English and hundreds of translations have been produced. including mine recently and since 2010. And why is there such a fascination with the translation of the Gita? My theory is that because there are such deep messages that just don't stop giving, this is the sign of a great piece of literature, a piece of literature that just keeps on giving. It never stops, and persons are able to delve more and more deeply into such a text, the more one really focuses on it, especially those that live it and are educated in the Sanskrit language. So it's been a lifetime fascination for me. I mean, it still is. I did produce recently with Columbia University Press, after my translation with HarperCollins, I did produce the world's very first comprehensive word reference for
You've got it there.
Bhagavad-gita.
Wow.
The very first word reference to the Bhagavad-gita, and that's ever been produced. Whereas for the Quran, there are 5 or 6 such word references. For the Bible, there are 12 to 15 such word references. When I was studying at Harvard, I was doing comparative work between Christianity and Indian traditions. I found plenty of reference works for the Bible, but when I went for the Gita, nothing. So eventually I decided I'll do it myself, and it just came out. It took me over 40 years, but whatever. We won't talk about my rather slow abilities in this matter, but eventually it did come out.
It looks like a big piece of work. Like, how many pages are in there?
It's close to 500, and the prettiest part of the book is the front cover. So
I was about to ask you the artwork.
Yeah.
Who did the artwork? It's beautiful.
This is by Kim Waters, the artist who did illuminations from the Bhagavad-gita years ago. But most of the book, is just lists of words and their places in the book. So don't be fooled by the pretty picture. Okay, this is meant to lure you in, and then now it's time to do some deep study of all the words. Every single word of the Gita is listed in here with all its intratextual connections and verbal root relationships. It's it's the first. No one's ever done this. So
thank you for bringing that into the world. It looks like it was a huge undertaking. You said 40 years there, but that points to a lot about the importance of Sanskrit in reading Bhagavad Gita, because, am I right? What is your take on that? Is some of the translation lost when it's in English or other languages, and does bringing it back to the Sanskrit help give us a deeper understanding?
Yeah, really good question, Saj, because I mean, we have this expression lost in translation, and it's very easy to lose so much of the original in the translation. But I'd like to introduce the sort of opposite notion of gained in translation. There can be something gained in a translation that can focus a reader more deeply in the way of a meditation on the text. So there are advantages and disadvantages to a translation, especially if one really is dedicated to reincarnating the original into a target language. Now, here's a problem that we have. There are many so-called translations that are actually renditions, popular renditions, even though on the front of the book it says a new translation, and then you read in the inside, the author does not know Sanskrit. So how do you translate something from a language that you don't know? I guess it's a very mystical process, right, Saj? I mean, or it's inauthentic. And what people will do is they take their 5 or 6 or 7 favorite translations and they do a kind of,
amalgamation
of And that's not a translation. It's really not. It's unfair to the readership to do that. But a lot of popular renditionists will do that. And their function really, in a way, is to bring people, maybe some people that would otherwise not come, they would bring people to something that sounds very familiar, but is not quite authentic. And hopefully they go from that sort of inauthentic rendition to something that's much truer to the text.
Right. Thank you. And for anyone who's new to the Bhagavad-gita or who's approaching it for the first time, what advice would you give, or what guidance would you give in terms of how to approach the text? Because one of the first things I hear from a lot of people who struggle with getting to grips with the wisdom of because it's such a vast text when you look at it
Yes.
just when you just pick up the book. And we have these things called, well, we do it in, I think, Gita, we have Gita circles where people read it together in groups. I was part of a group called a Sangha where we read, where we would come together on a Tuesday evening and read for an hour. We'd take one verse at a time and then discuss it. And I found that very helpful. Or would you take it a chapter at a time or a few pages a day? Where would someone start?
Saj, the Gita is a very perplexing text. Let me show you why. Let me show you how, okay? Just a little screen share here, not very long. I'm going to be very sympathetic to the new reader of the Gita. Well, first of all, let me see here. That'll disappear. Good. Okay. The three most read sacred texts in the world, you can imagine. The first one is the Bible. It has around 31,000 plus verses. The second one is the Quran with 6,236 verses. Quite a bit less than the Bible. And then the third most read sacred text is the Bhagavad-gita. Only 700 verses? My gosh. Look at that. I mean, for homework, I mean, you'd much rather read the Bhagavad-gita than the Bible. I mean, my God, only 700 verses. Unbelievable. But here's the problem. By the way, sorry for the shameless self-promotion. I put my version, of course, of the Bhagavad-gita in there. Anyway, so you'll be patient with me. But look, but when you open up the Gita, it doesn't sound like a scripture. Look, listen. The book of Genesis. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was formless, void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. I don't know about you, but I'm very excited right now. I mean, it's like, wow, okay. In a sense, it's overwhelming. I mean, my God. But if that weren't enough for you, what about this? The Gospel of Mark. The beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, as it is written in the prophet Isaiah, see, I am sending my messenger ahead of you who will prepare your way, the voice of one crying out in the wilderness. Wow. I don't know about you, but I'm getting, pretty blown away here, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's very cinematic.
What about the Gospel of John? Very mystical, how do you say, Gnostic, the mysticism of the Gnostic world back then. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, etc. Okay, well, okay. If that weren't enough, what about the Quran? I mean, immediately, glory to Allah, Most High, full of grace and mercy. He created all, including man. To man, he gave a special place in his creation. He honored man to be his agent, etc., etc., etc. Now, we go to the Bhagavad-gita. On the field of Dharma, on the field of Kuru, assembled together, desiring to fight, were my armies, and indeed those of the sons of Pandu. How did they act, O Sanjaya? What? Wait a minute. Wait. Am I reading this right? Wait, this is a scripture, right? Now, yeah. I mean, does this sound like the book of Genesis? Does it sound like one of the gospel writers? Does it sound like the Quran. No, not even close. On the field of Dharma, on the field of Kuru, assembled together desiring to fight, were my armies, and indeed those of the sons of Pandu, his brother. How did they act? What in the world is going on here? This is a Western reader's typical perplexity when first entering the Gita. Why? Well, first of all, you're stepping into a story that, come on, I'm sure someone in this group has been invited over to a friend's house when they were in the middle of watching a movie, and you were invited to sit down and watch the rest of the movie with them, and you found it, frankly, an unpleasant experience. I mean, you know, and this is what the Gita is doing. It's inviting us to enter into the middle of a narrative, a huge narrative of the Mahabharata, the very text from which this Bhagavad-gita jewel was taken. A text that is the greatest epic poem in the world, 100,000 verses. Many more verses than all of the Western sacred texts that I mentioned, added up. But here is the jewel of that text. And so this is, you know, so what do we have? What does it mean? What is the Bhagavad Gita doing? And here's the point. Here's the point, Saj. The other Western sacred texts front load divinity, the nomenclature of divinity, the attributes of divinity, the acts of divinity. The Bhagavad Gita does something more universal, although more startling. It presents the human condition. And that is far more universal than this particular divinity or that particular divinity. It's amazing. The Bhagavad Gita, if we know how to read it, speaks to every human.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all wondering what is happening on our battlefields. So this is powerful. This is why I think the Bhagavad Gita holds the attention of Westerners and with a grip to the point where there are hundreds of translations. So this is very mysterious, and but it's powerful. Now, if we look at the first few words of the Gita, on the field of Dharma, on the field of Kuru, assembled together desiring to fight, those 6 words, in a way, have the kind of seed of the whole text. On the field of our true inner nature, Dharma, on the field of our external situation and conditioning of our lives, symbolized by the name of the dynasty from which all the warriors on the field of Kurukshetra come, the Kuru dynasty. So there's the internal nature and the external nature. They come together in conflict. And that is everyone's challenge. And that is the way the Bhagavad Gita begins, if we know how to read it.
I was furiously taking notes there.
We'll go right on ahead, Saj. I mean,
I've never heard the opening of Bhagavad Gita put into that perspective and context, because I was
that's why you have me here, right? I
mean,
yeah. Did you think you were going to get the same old stuff over and over? Come on. I mean, this is my job. This is what I do.
No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant because I've always seen that battlefield as a metaphor for the internal struggle that we have, but I've never seen it in that way where it's so binary as on the field of our true inner nature and yet coming together in conflict with the external nature. It's amazing, and it's so humanizing that it opens with that to show the human condition, because it's the starting place, you know, for inquisition.
Divinity is not front-loaded in the Gita as it is in all these Western texts. Right. Divinity comes out in the 4th chapter, not the first. And here's another powerful aspect of stepping into a story that's already begun. How disconcerting that is. Well, didn't you feel a little disconcerted when you came into the world? I mean, you were kind of stepping into a story that also already had begun. Like, hey, wait a second. What happened? What am I doing here? Wait a second. Is there something prior to my showing up here? I asked my parents that after being born. One day, I asked my parents that. They didn't respond very well. They didn't really know what to tell me. Okay, maybe I wasn't that precocious, but whatever. The point is that there's a kind of givenness that we end up here, and there's something like stepping into a story that's already begun, namely us. We're here. Well, wait a minute. Well, what happened prior to here? And where am I going? Anyway, so again, the Gita is loaded, loaded with powerful symbolic messages if we know how to read the Gita. And this takes a teacher, it takes teachers to do this.
Mm-hmm. Please share your comments and reflections in the chat if that resonates with you in any way, or if you do have questions as we go along, because yeah, what an amazing opening. I've never seen the Gita compared side by side as well to those other texts, the Quran and the Book of Genesis. In that way.
Again, it's not just why you have me here, right? I mean, that's what you're paying me for, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not getting paid, but whatever. I mean,
we're paying you with our love and adoration and gratitude for sure.
That's the best. That is the best form of payment. That is true.
Someone's asked a question here. I'd like for Garuda Ji to elaborate on the internal nature and external natures. Please.
Yes. And this is the Gita's way of drawing the reader into the nature of the soul, or the true self that is eternal, that is ultimately separate from the gross and subtle bodies that are all sandwiching the soul. It's the beginning to understand that there was a life prior to us entering this battlefield of Kurukshetra. There is a sense of continuity of the eternal self, just as we're stepping into a story that has already begun. Our stories are eternal, and we're realizing that. We're stepping into that story with much greater appreciation and realization that this is a story that is eternal, that's meant to go on eternally. The question is, how are we going to write the rest of our story? That's the question. How are we going to continue this narrative? And that was put forward to Arjuna. Arjuna, the first chapter, is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga, very different than the other chapters. There's either the chapter of there's either the yoga of the divine or the yoga of the human, and different names of the rest of the 17 chapters. The first chapter is called Arjuna's Vishada Yoga, the yoga of hopelessness. There are all kinds of yogas out there. They've got, I don't know, laughing yoga, goat yoga. I was going to open up a studio called the Yoga of Hopelessness. I think I would be overwhelmed with clients. I really do.
I think it would be oversubscribed.
Yeah, I think so. The Yoga of Despair. Now, look, everyone here, you can't take my idea, okay, and run with it. This is my idea. Let me try it first. And then if it works, then you can copy it, okay, if I haven't trademarked it. Now, but seriously, it opens up with Arjuna experiencing a total breakdown. Again, the human condition at its sort of worst level. It's bottom, he's hit bottom. Arjuna speaks some 28 verses where he is just devastated by the war he's about to fight. And remember, he is a great warrior. Warriors are not scared to fight. He wasn't scared to fight. he was devastated to see that he was going to be in warfare with people he loved and revered on the opposing side of the battlefield. And, most of us who have lived a little while, have experienced loving someone a lot and finding out that they had a dark side to them as well. And that's painful. That's really painful. So these relatives, this was a fratricidal war, these relatives on the opposing side of the battlefield were representing the evil-minded Dhritarashtra. And so he felt that, he didn't know whether to fight or whether not to fight. It was his duty on the one hand, it was his dharma, more than duty, it was his nature. And it was his calling to go and protect innocent persons from evil on the one hand. And on the other hand, you can't kill people you love. It's just not possible. So the Gita opens up, and again, here's another teaching, Saj, with an irresolvable ethical dilemma. And one of the tacit but most powerful teachings of the Gita is that on an ethical level, there will always be irresolvable conflicts. Pro-choice, pro-life, for example. There are arguments, strong arguments on both sides, but there are weak arguments on both sides. And there will never be a perfect resolution. The Gita, in a sense, is offering the teaching like this. If you're expecting perfection and perfect resolution of anything in this world, you are sadly mistaken. The only way to find any resolution is to go within, and as Krishna urges Arjuna, be a yogi. Go within. You will find the answers there. You will not find the answers without. It's powerful, powerful stuff.
Extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Once again, furiously taking notes. But I like that, because we always, especially when it comes to these ethical conflicts and dilemmas that we have, more often than not, they're very close to home. It's like what you said with regards to those of us who have been around for a while, you loving someone and realizing that they potentially have a dark side. And you fight, and try so hard to find a resolution to that, and you don't realize that sometimes that's a bit of a lost cause. And I like that you're flipping the perspective on its head, that you're seeking the answers within,
Yes,
and not outside. And we're kind of driven in this material world to constantly be taking everything outside in. We're not doing it the opposite way, which is inside out. We don't take that time to introspect,
that's right.
So thank you so much for sharing that teaching with
Yeah.
us.
Well, that's the Gita. That's what the Gita is about. The Gita really is crying out to show us the human condition, and is trying to show us through its complex teachings, which Krishna speaks throughout most of the Gita. 575 verses of the 700 total are spoken by Krishna. So the Gita is predominantly Krishna's voice, and predominantly that of a teacher, but he's also a charioteer in the beginning. He's also a divinity, and he's also a friend and confidant. I mean, look, isn't that the greatest friend to have? Someone who will listen to you speak 28 verses of agony, and he only speaks 5 words. He's there listening and listening and listening and listening. That's a good friend, I would say.
Yeah. One of the best of friends.
I think maybe a supreme friend in this case. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you touch a little bit more about the dynamics and the relationship, how that evolved over the course of the Bhagavad-gita between Krishna and Arjuna? Because you mentioned before the divinity aspect only really gets revealed as we move into the fourth chapter, and that they have such a loving relationship, which is quite palpable. It's just two friends really having a conversation,
That's right.
which is such a wonderful structure and framework to be able to access the wisdom.
Yes, yes, it is beautiful. You're listening to two friends who love each other dearly work through this breakdown on the part of Arjuna. So the relationship between Arjuna and Krishna actually is very complex. There are 8 levels to that relationship. Okay, if you'll bear with me. The first level is in the first half of the first chapter, which is a charioteer to a passenger. Okay, Krishna's, driving that chariot. Then in the second half, Arjuna sees what is in front of him on the battlefield. He asks Krishna to drive his chariot between both armies so he can see who is representing this evil-minded Dhritarashtra, this evil king. And he was shocked to see so many people he loved. And then then he became a kind of a friend to a confidant. Krishna became a confidant. And as a friend, he was just dumping the contents of his bewildered mind and his shattered heart onto Krishna, who barely spoke 5 words while he was speaking about 28 verses of agonizing, thinking and painful feelings that he had. He even thought, maybe I should just let them kill me. I mean, why do I want to live in a kingdom with the blood of those whom I love spilled in that kingdom? I don't want to live without people I love, and I don't want to kill the people I love. So he actually thought, maybe almost like a suicide, maybe I'll just let them kill me. Again, he's one of the greatest warriors of the time. He did not have to let anyone kill him. So that's the second relationship, a friend to a confidant. The third begins in the second chapter, verse 7 in particular. Shishyas teham shadi mamaham prapanam. I am your student. Please instruct me. I submit myself unto you. And this is where he becomes a student and Krishna becomes a teacher. And that's the dominant relationship throughout. But in the fourth chapter, it's clear that Krishna is a divinity and Arjuna is a devotee. But that breaks down into 4 more relationships. The karma yogi, that is to say, one who sees Krishna or divinity piercing through this world, the Virata Rupa, the universal form, the way everything extraordinarily beautiful and splendorous and wonderful is just a little spark of Krishna's splendor. So that's the karma yogi. The jnana yogi is one who sees divinity in the totality of reality. And then there's the dhyana yogi, the one who meditates and sees Krishna within. So there's the Krishna without everywhere, in the totality of being, Krishna everywhere in the world, and then the Krishna, the divinity within the heart, as a meditating dhyana yogi. And then there's the bhakti yogi, who sees the intimate form of Krishna right before him, as Arjuna is doing. And it's the yoga of love and affection. So these are the 8 relationships. Am I going too fast, Saj? We have a limited amount of time here. We got to get.
No, you're going great. So we had the charioteer to passenger, which is at the beginning.
Yep.
We got friend to confident.
That's right.
I'm your student. Please instruct me. So we've got
That's
student
right.
teacher. Then we've
That's
got
right.
divinity to devotee.
That's right.
Karma yogi. So one who sees Krishna piercing through this world externally everywhere in the
That's right.
Virat Rupa. And then I think I might have lost you on one. Was it Dhyana Yogi next, or was there another
No,
one?
Jnana Yogi.
Jnana Yogi, that's the knowledge, right?
Totality of reality. Brahman.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so we got from Virata Rupa to Brahman, and then we get to the Dhyana Yogi. Then there's the yogi who perceives the Antaryaman, the indwelling presence of divinity.
Okay, and then the Bhakti Yogi who sees the intimate form of Krishna right before him, which is the yoga of love and devotion.
That's it. There you go. Very good.
Brilliant.
You would
Brilliant.
be a good student. You would be a good student in my class, I think, at the university. I think that would be.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll take that. I'll take
I
that as
think
a
you would do all
compliment.
right. No, don't register. But I'm just saying you would be, potentially good. Yeah.
I really am a student in these wisdom talks because I always get to speak to wonderful speakers like yourself who share the knowledge of the Bhagavad-gita through their own personal journey and unique perspective. And you can see from the work that you've done in the translation. So did your translation of the Bhagavad-gita come before the word reference?
Yes.
Oh, it did, yeah. You can
Yes,
see
it
that
did.
you've lived the Bhagavad Gita through and through, and it's amazing that you're sharing this with us in this way. So we looked at the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna. Someone had a question about Krishna in relation to the creation. So they say, may I ask, please, looking at the total creation, why does Krishna choose to create?
Okay. The Gita provides a metaphysics of love. If divinity gave us no choice but to be subservient to him, to be in relation to him and only him, then you cannot call that love. Love requires freedom, and freedom means we have choices. And therefore, we have the option of being away from divinity or closer to divinity. In fact, some people, sometimes people wonder when they read the Gita, why does Krishna offer Arjuna so many teachings, so many paths that they could take, so many practices, so many philosophies? He says in the 8th chapter, if you can die during the waxing of the moon, just like a yogi, and then you'll be liberated. He's giving, why does he bother saying this? Why does he talk about palatyaga, renouncing the fruits of one's actions? Why does he talk about proper ways of sacrifice? Why does he talk about ways of going into meditation and Sankhya philosophy? Why does he talk about all of these things? These are expressions of the unlimited generosity of his heart. He does not force Arjuna into a relationship with him. He offers so many options. So many options. So, this is the Gita within the dialogue itself. There is this freedom to choose. Without that, there is no love. And ultimately, love means I choose of my own heart's desires.
That's made me quite emotional, actually, hearing that, because nobody has ever spoken about Gita from the perspective of love, and the fact that you touch on the truth of love. Love requires freedom, and freedom means that we have choices. It's something that we often forget, and that we cut ourselves off from, whether it's that through our own conditioning or because it's the internal struggle or strife that we have. But
yeah, well, the heart is the most fragile thing in a human, and yet it's the hardest thing to talk about. except when you're listening to popular songs, then oh, baby, baby, come back to me, baby, baby, I love you, you're my angel. Obviously, you can tell I'm not a lyrics writer for popular songs, but
I think you just sung a very popular Justin Bieber song there. So
oh, is that? Oh, wow. Well, okay. I mean, perhaps I'm in the wrong
You're in the
business.
wrong
I'm not
field.
sure.
I'm just slightly becoming conscious of time. Like, you said to me before everyone came on live, you said you could do this. You had 40 hours of stuff that you could share. And I
Oh,
reckon
that's
I could
minimum. That's minimum.
I reckon I could sit here for another
Yeah,
40 hours and listen
yeah.
to you, but you've
But not
shared
everyone
some.
here could. Not
I'm
everyone.
pretty sure if everyone gave a thumbs up or reacted to this, they would agree with me here. But you shared some greater, and I would say the greatest is the one about love, but some brilliant secrets about the Bhagavad Gita. But if we were to get onto the greatest secret of the Bhagavad Gita from your perspective, or maybe for the energy of this evening, or whatever you feel might need to be shared, what would you like to share with the audience or impart?
Okay, well, this is not my invention. I'm just bringing out what's in the Gita, but it's so well hidden in the Gita. One wonderful scholar, Oxford scholar of the past century, Richard Charles Zahner, he puts out a translation of the Gita that's still available. It's not bad. It's actually good following the Sri Vaishnava commentaries. But he completely missed the point of the Gita. And you know what? Most people do. The climactic event of the Gita, Richard Charles Zahner, sorry, he claims is the 11th chapter, with Krishna's display of the universal form that's overwhelming, that's beautiful and awesome, but just frightening at the same time. The chapter is anticlimactic even, because at the end of the chapter, Krishna says, that is not the most precious form I have. The one you're seeing in front of you is the most precious and rarely attained. And so it's anticlimactic, but despite that expression, and despite the fact that this so-called ultimate climactic event of the Gita is happening in the middle of the text, when is the climactic message of a movie in the middle? Any drama, what about Shakespeare? And it's always toward the end or at the end. So this is impossible. The real drama of the Gita is in the 18th chapter, Saj, and I'm going to show you that right now. I'm going to share my screen. And first, let me get to it. Let me see here. Let's go through here. Okay, here we go. Okay, let me share the screen. And okay, so we're jumping to the 18th chapter. After Krishna has given an enormously rich and deep discourse of the multifarious ways that we can reach beyond this world to live more authentically in this world, he finally comes up with the great secret, the greater secret, and the greatest secret of all. And the great secret corresponds and addresses Arjuna's external world problem, the external conflict. The answer to that, Krishna explains, is there we go. Okay, so is act according to one's dharma. You deal with world conflicts by acting out of one's true heart to do in this world what you were made to do, what your purpose here is to be. And by fulfilling that, you can deal with any problems in front of you. Okay, so that's external. So verses 1 through 49 summarize Krishna's teachings and underscore some of the main things that Krishna's teachings give you earlier on in the text. And there's some repetition of ideas, even some repetition of the very words of a certain verse. And then we move to, so that's 49 verses. The next 14 verses. So you see, it's like a mountain. We're going up to the middle of the mountain here, to the greater secret, the comparative of secret, or of greater. And this has to do with realizing the true self and transcendence and Brahman, to realize ultimate reality, the reality that is beyond this world. And this is the greater secret. And then the greatest secret of all has to do with a divine love, a divine yearning. But most people miss this. They miss it. And that's why it's called a secret, because it stays a secret naturally, because people miss it. And then finally, the concluding words of Krishna, Arjuna, and then Sanjaya, the narrator. So here is the verse from which I learned that there are these three secrets. Thus, for you, this knowledge, which is a greater secret than the previous secret, is made known by me, having fully grasped this with nothing overlooked, then act as you so choose. You see, Saj, here's the secret about free will. We have no free will until we're enlightened to a great degree. Now, Arjuna, now that you've got this knowledge of the great secret and the greater secret, now you can become the architect of your own future and not merely be subject to the conditioning forces of worldly nature. Now you can do that. Before, when you had your breakdown, you were not in control. You had no choices. You were just, you dropped your bow. You had a breakdown. This verse is the very verse that comes before the greatest secret of all. Okay? Now, Saj, are you ready for this? I mean, are you sitting down? I mean, this is...
I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm actually
Okay.
literally, I'm leaning into the screen. I started off the talk here and I'm like here now. So.
Okay, good. You stay right there. Now, here's the thing. The last words that Krishna speaks to Arjuna is in the form of a rhetorical question. Arjuna, have you heard this whole teaching with thought focused on the single highest point? So what is that single highest point? Sanjaya characterizes 4 verses before ending the whole text. He characterizes the whole teaching as the supreme secret of yoga. So what is that single highest point to which all the teachings are tethered? What is that supreme secret of yoga spoken of? What is he talking about? Well, I'm about to show you. Oh, you don't know Sanskrit. I'm sorry. Okay.
You know how to work an audience.
I'm so sorry. I thought this was in transliteration. You would know. That's very careless of me.
If I had your reference book, then I would have known.
See, I know you don't have it. So you see, I'm tricking you. Yeah, I'm tricking you. Now, what I've done here with this verse, which is the key verse, I have color-coded the portions that I want to emphasize when I give you each portion. If you can trust me on this, Saj, there is no verse in the whole Gita that is as emotionally charged, is as dramatic, is as how do you say, just as exclamatory, you could say, almost say, as this verse. Now let me show you. Sarva Guhyatamam, the greatest secret of all. Sarva, all. Guhyatamam is the superlative of Guhya, of great secret. So this is not just a superlative. It's not just the greatest secret. It's the greatest secret of all greatest secrets. This is very strong language. Okay. Now, if that were not enough, can you imagine getting a text message from your friend? I've got the greatest secret of all my secrets to tell you. Please call me. I mean, you're going to delay calling? I don't think so. I think you're going to want to call right away. Well, let's see what happens. But if this were not enough, Bhuya Shranu, once more, please hear. In other words, I've been telling you this all along, but you haven't fully heard it. So if that were not enough, Saj, listen to this. Me paramang vachaha. It is my supreme message. Are you getting this, Saj? If you're not, I'm going to stop right now. We'll just all go home. Okay.
I'm open. I'm completely open.
Okay. What is, and if that were not enough, quotation marks. He puts the greatest secret of all, his supreme message that he wants us to hear fully again. You see, in Sanskrit, there are no, boldface, italics, double strike, emojis, uppercase letters. If you're going to say it, you've got to say it. And the closest thing to underlining anything is quotation marks. And that's taken care of by the iti. And here is the greatest secret of all. Okay, here we go. You are so much loved by me. There it is. There's no small print. You are so much loved by me if you obey me. No, it doesn't say that. You are so much loved by me, otherwise you will go to hell. No, it does not say that. You are so much loved by me if you become enslaved to my every desire. No, it does not say that. It's a divinity who loves souls forever and is waiting for souls to turn to him. Truly, you shall come to me. This I promise you, for you are dearly loved by me. Well, that's all I got to say, Saj. I have nothing more to say.
I'm actually pretty speechless. I've never get this emotional on a wisdom talk before.
Well, Saj, you're hosting. You can't be speechless here, okay? Because I'm gonna. I mean, if you're speechless, that means I have to be the host, or I'll have to get Sneha back on here, or or Bhakti Niyam,
Thank you for sharing that. It's something we forget very easily, and it's true. It's there, staring us, staring. I can't even get my words out, but staring.
It's staring us in the face,
in the face,
and yet we have such a hard time absorbing this. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That's why it's secret. It's secret because we're not ready to hear it, Saj. And even when we hear it, we still have not entered the.
I like Arjuna there almost went back to chapter 1, the yoga of hopelessness.
Yeah.
Someone said, can you show the full quote again? And someone else just said, just when I thought the Gita couldn't get more interesting, it got so emotional.
Good.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm happy to hear I'm not the only one there. But you really did share you really did keep the greatest secret for the end. Go last. Thank you so much.
Indeed. Okay, so someone asked for the full verse translation. I can go back.
Yeah. Can you show the full quote again? And if anybody has a question for Garuda, I'm conscious of time, but we have to wrap up. But I don't think we could. That's actually my favorite ending to a Gita of wisdom talk of all time. Garuda. I enjoyed it even more than your rendition of baby singing.
Okay, now look, I don't want to leave this conversation, this Gita talk with insults. I mean,
Someone said
really.
would love. Someone has said would love to have another session with him. So now we know the greatest secret. What do we do with this knowledge that I
Ah,
am loved?
yes, that would be the subject of another hour, easily.
Okay, I'm locking it. I'm locking it in now. Garudas, with you, we're going to get another session on on I am loved and what to do with that. What to do with the greatest secret of the Bhagavad-gita.
Yes, but you will have to endure some of my popular songs because you've encouraged me.
I've
Uh,
encouraged you. I've opened it up now. I've opened
I
up the
think
gateway.
I'm feeling kind of encouraged uh, by your compliments earlier. So you may have
I I
guided
have
me in the
to.
wrong way.
I hope I have, because I'm here for it as much time as we can get with you. I have to join my hands and say thank you, along with everyone else, I'm sure, for sharing your insights and your wisdom with such love and such energy, and I really would love to have you back on here. Thank you so much for sharing the greater and the greatest. I can't believe I've been reading the Bhagavad Gita for nowhere near as long as you've been studying it, just for 5 years now. And I never saw that verse in that way. And you really opened my eyes there in this session. So thank you so
Glad to
much.
serve your mind and your heart, Saj, and anyone else is here. And I thank you very much for the opportunity for today. I really do. Thank you so much.
Big thank yous from everyone. So guys who are online with us, we're actually meeting in person next Thursday at Studio 108 in Holborn. So please join us. We're joined by Chaitanya Charandas there,
Oh,
which is going to be a really wonderful session. And we're talking about battling the inner dialogue. And Gita circles are back. So they're starting on the 29th of July. So you get a step-by-step study of the Bhagavad Gita. You can read it with expert facilitators. So please do look into that. And people are agreeing that you really opened something up there, Garuda. So once again, thank you so much, and I can't wait to have you back on. Really,
okay,
yeah,
good.
I'm so
By the way,
grateful.
Chaitanya Charan is one of my best fans of my translation. He knows the book inside and out.
Um,
So
where can we also get a copy of your translation? It's Bhagavad Gita, the Beloved Lord's Secret, right? Is it available online on your
oh,
website?
Amazon everywhere. It's
Amazon.
everywhere around the world. Yeah. Again, HarperCollins is a world publisher. It is sold over 50,000, but I'm sure they haven't run out yet.
I think I've just found a copy of it. So the audio of this will be available on our YouTube channel, and I believe potentially on Spotify as well. So I know I'll be tuning in again. You had me in tears there at the end, Garuda. So thank you, thank you for sharing
I
that.
tend to do that with a lot of people, and not necessarily when I'm speaking about the Gita. So it's good.
Me too. Me
Yeah.
too. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for
Thank
joining.
you.
See you next week.
Namaskar. Namaskar.